The purpose of this video is to walk through the steps that are necessary in working through the financial analysis project, particularly if you have not worked with Excel very much. I have here opened the full data set. If I click on one of the first columns, I can see down at the bottom that I have almost 36,000 observations here. These span the years 2014, 2015, and 2016. This is data for all publicly traded companies that are listed on a stock exchange for these variables that I've selected from the full data set. We can find variable names by clicking on the link that's included on the instruction sheet. If you prefer to rename these, AT is total assets. Cost of goods sold, obviously, is the next variable. The next one is number of common shares outstanding. We're going to need that in our EPS calculation. NI obviously is net income. DVP is preferred dividends. SAL is simply our sales or revenue. SEQ is total stockholders' equity. And this last variable here is operating income. First thing that I want to do is generate my ratios that I'm going to use for the analysis. There will be 6 of them. I'm going to start by inserting a column next to company name. The reason that I'm going to do it in between company name and total assets is because this field's company name has no missing values. If I click on S, I see 35,671 observations. If I click on total assets, I see a number much smaller, so I know there's some missing observations. That'll become important when we want to drag our formulas down. So to begin, what I'm going to do is highlight or select the column E, the column to the right of where I want to insert the column. To insert the column, I'm going to go to Home, which I'm already on that Home tab, and I'm going to come over here to Cells, Insert, and we see here that because I had that whole column highlighted, an entire new column came in. I'm going to add 6 ratios as they are listed on the instruction sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that 5 more times. And now that I have all my new columns, I can go ahead and start creating my new variables. The first one I'm going to do is gross profit margin. And I calculate gross profit margin. Since I don't have gross profit, I need to calculate it. It's the difference between sales and cost of goods sold divided by sales. In class, we reviewed what the purpose of this ratio. Okay, doing a formula, I need to start with equals. I need to tell Excel to do sales minus cost of goods sold together as the numerator before dividing. So I use the parentheses to indicate the order of operations. I then divide by sales. I'm going to take my cursor, and I can see that as I scroll around the Excel field, it's a big white plus sign. If I go to the lower right-hand corner and hover over there, it turns into a black plus sign. With my cursor in the black plus sign in the lower right corner, I'm going to double left click, and that will put the values all the way down to the very last row of data. So when I highlight this, I can see that we have the full 35,671 observations. I'm going to work on my next variable, which is going to be the operating profit margin. I'm going to tell Excel that this is a formula, so equal to operating income divided by sales. Okay, now I have my operating margin. I'm going to get my net profit margin, which is simply net income divided by sales. Now I have earnings per share. Remember, with earnings per share, we need to take net income. From that net income in the numerator, we need to subtract out preferred dividends. And I'm going to divide that by the number of shares outstanding, which I have here in column M. Drag that formula down. Next is ROA. We're going to use net income divided by total assets. And last line, I'm going to use ROE, return on equity. Net income divided by total stockholders' equity. Now, I could have done this earlier, but to do a shortcut, I'm going to highlight both of these, and that'll take down the respective formulas down to the bottom row. Now that we've calculated all our necessary variables, we see one problem. If I highlight this field, all I see is the count. I don't see the total. If we look at total assets, I highlight that total, I'll see an average and a sum. The reason we have a problem is because of these divide by zeros. So when we're trying to calculate a formula and the denominator is 0, like we see here in row 5, sales was blank, we can't calculate a ratio there. So in order to remove these, I'm going to go one by one and add a filter to the top row and filter by those variables that are showing this error message, divide by 0. To add the filter, I'm going to select this first row. I'm going to go down, put my cursor over to the row 1, where it becomes a black arrow, and I'm going to click to highlight that first row. I'm going to go to Data, and then select Filter. Now I see that I can filter for each one of these. So I'm going to have to go one by one. Click the down arrow. I'm going to take off this filter. Well, I can do number filters, equals, and then I have to type in exactly what I'm seeing here. That's the problem. Number sign, div /0. Got my exclamation point here, so when I put in my filter, try this one more time. Okay, now I've filtered on all the divide by zeros. Now I can delete these as well for the next 4 variables where I see, but I'm going to do them one at a time. And the reason for that is, well, I see one value here. Maybe I don't want to delete this value here in row 205. So I'm going to go one variable at a time. To select the entire row, I'm going to select the first cell here in cell E5. I'm going to do Control. There are different ways to get to the bottom, but what I'm going to do is while I'm selecting this first cell of data with the error, I'm going to do Shift. I'm holding down Shift and end the down arrow. That takes me all the way to the bottom, and then I hit Delete. Now that I've done that, I'm going to repeat this step for each one of the next few variables. I'll record only the next one and then pause, as you'll have to do the same thing for the net profit margin, EPS, ROA, and ROE. Select the first cell of data, hold down Shift, hold down End, and hold down the down arrow, and then delete. I'm going to pause this video here, and I suggest that you pause here and repeat these same steps for the next 4 variables that we've created. Now my data is fully prepared. I have all the necessary values for each one of my 6 ratios that I'm going to use to measure performance. If I start with the gross profit margin, I see an average down at the bottom, an average negative gross profit margin of negative 9.03. Now each one of these is a ratio, compares the numerator to the denominator, so this would be a negative 900%. The reason for that is there's influenced by some very, very big, unusual negative numbers. So instead of using averages to analyze my data, I'm going to use medians or middle values. In order to do that, I insert a formula down at the bottom for the tell Excel to get the median of each one of these columns where I have one of my ratios. To get down to the bottom, I'm going to go to company name where there's values in every field and do Shift and down. That'll bring me down to the bottom. There are many different ways to get to the bottom of the data set. That's how I do it. Now I'm going to calculate the median. So I'm going to say equals median E2 through E, and then I want my last row of data, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, so the median gross profit margin is about 38%. I'm going to click on that, find that black plus sign, click on it, left click, and drag it over so that I have all of my 6 values, 6 formulas for each one, one formula for each one of my variables. I'm going to go to Home, make this a number. This makes a little bit more sense. Okay, gross profit margin of 38%, operating profit margin of 8%, net profit margin 3%, earnings per share 4 cents a share. I see ROA of 0 and ROE of 3%. The next thing that I want to do is a year-by-year analysis of my full sample. In order to do that, I'm going to create a new worksheet in which I'm going to put my data for each one of these years. When I scroll down here next to this Data Set tab, I see a plus sign. I'm going to click that to put in a new worksheet. I'm going to rename this with a right click while I'm highlighting this fields, and I'm going to call this new sheet 2014. I'm going to do this several times and put in my 2014 data. I'm going to put in my 2015 data. And then my 2016 data. This is still for the full sample. I'm also going to repeat the same analysis using my specific industry. In order to copy the data over, I'm going to sort by F year, which means fiscal year. I'm going to start with 2014. And I want to select all this data and put it into the 2014 worksheet. I'm going to come over here into this top left corner and click. It's right between the to the left of the A and above the 1. And I'm going to copy all of this data. The shortcut for that is to hold down Control and hit letter C. Now I've copied the data. I'm going to come down here to my worksheet called 2014. And in cell A1, I'm going to paste it by holding down Control and hitting V. Here's all my 2014 data. So now I want to come down and put my median calculations in. So I'm going to come up here to the company name and do Shift and down. I'm going to put in my medians just for this 1 year. Pretty similar so far to what I found for all years. Okay, looks very similar to what I had for the entire data set. Let me come here and compare these numbers. Oh, let me take my filter off. So what differences do I have from the full sample compared to 2014? Well, just to take a closer look, I'm going to copy this data, Control C. And when I paste it here, I don't want to paste the formula, I want to paste the value. So I'm going to come up to the top on this Home tab, hit Paste, and scroll down to these numbers, which says Values. The only differences that I see between the median values for 2014 versus the full sample with 2014 through 2016 really is here in the net profit margin and the earnings per share. I'm going to repeat this analysis by filtering the data set for 2015, copy and paste it into the 2015 worksheet, and then repeat the same thing for 2016. Once that's finished, I'm going to remove my filter for the year so I can see all observations. And then I want to start by analyzing my industry.